The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party Podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times with Good People company, the host, or its sponsors.
Just not getting it.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel. Hey out there in podcast land, I'm your host, Rio, and welcome to the Loft Party Podcast, episode 71, The Path to Totality. From racial heritage marches to a total eclipse of the sun, it's getting dark in here. But before we get started, let's introduce today's panel. I, of course, have my returning champion, Chris O'Connor. He is the owner of Liquid 9 Entertainment and Investments, as well as having interest in Regal Whiskey and Office Works. I have got Big Dave Elliott. He's the owner of CNP Construction. I've got Adrian Lewis, formerly in management in the manufacturing sector. You want me to announce?
Sure.
I have got Lane Boland, one half of the Brothers Grimm. I like to call them the Money and the Honey, and he is the money in the Brothers Grimm.
That's a shirt.
Oh, definitely. The Money and the Honey.
The Money and the Honey.
If somebody else is with him,
the honey
it is the honey.
There you go. And of course, the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. But before we get into important things, let's get into important things. So, what are we drinking? Our bartender, Ben, couldn't stay, but before he left, he gave me the recipe for Daughter of Old Westport. This cocktail was inspired by the classic Negroni. It showcases a love for sherry, actually. Also, it kind of experiments with different vermouths, and this is a riff on a recipe originally from Spain.
Was the daughter named Sherry?
I have no idea.
One-legged prostitute of Westport.
But I'll go with both of those. I'll work with that. Okay. All right. So we've got 1 ounce of Rieger's dry gin. We've got 1 ounce of Aperol. We've got 1 ounce of sherry vermouth, and 4 to 5 drops of Bitterman's grapefruit bitters. You're going to combine those in a glass, stir with ice, strain until chilled, and garnish with an orange zest.
That sounds good.
And of course, the anonymous female is doing what she normally does in our podcast and not drinking. So the rest of us can say how delicious this is. And of course, I don't know why, because this is a gin one. She would have drank this just fine. But that's okay, because it's delicious. And that leaves us with, what are we smoking? It is the CASA FERNANDEZ Miami AGANORSA leaf Maduro Robusto Extra.
I feel like Lane should.
Lane, say that like.
Okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna say.
You have to do it fast.
I'm about to say. Lane.
CASA FERNANDEZ Miami AGANORSA leaf Maduro Robusto Extra.
There you go.
The first half and then the second half is English.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, the supply for this tobacco comes directly from where the owner kind of grew this in the Mexican San Andreas, and so you've got the.
Thought I tasted weed.
You got the what? Say that again for us, Blaine. What is it? AGANORSA?
That would be AGANORSA.
AGANORSA. So you've got the AGANORSA, and which in itself actually has a really interesting flavor, and for a change, we're smoking this in a Robusto extra size. I'm personally not as big a fan of Robustos, but this is actually not a bad cigar.
Not what she said.
Hey, well, hey. And so this is really not a bad cigar at all, and is on Cigar Aficionado's top 25 list. So please check it out. And that takes us into today's RIPs.
Well, you forgot to say one more thing about that cigar.
Yes.
The name is so long it actually has 3 wrappers on it. It just goes in a spiral down.
Child support sucks.
And actually, actually, one other thing about this cigar is actually reasonably inexpensive. It's only like $9 or $10 a stick. So it's not going to hurt your pocketbook either.
Nice.
So today's RIPs. First, I have them in a different order on my sheet, but I'll start with this one. Comedian and civil rights activist Dick Gregory passes away at 84. I personally grew up with watching either interviews or old comedy routines from Dick Gregory, so I'm quite familiar with his work, and his passing will definitely be felt by the black community at large, because he was a tireless activist and spent millions of his own dollars to try to affect change in varying ways over the years. And our second RIP is the original Nutty Professor himself, Jerry Lewis. He passed away at 91. It's funny, if you haven't out there in podcast land watched any old Jerry Lewis movies, in particular,
with Dick
I was
Martin.
going to say, in particular the ones with Dean Martin, you're doing yourself a disservice. This is just hilariously funny stuff, and you can really see the seeds for a lot of the comedians that are working today if you go back through and you find his old routines and his old movies. It was really funny. And then, of course, later in life, he started the telethon that would actually come on every Labor Day, actually.
Much like this before.
He said he raised
Over $1 billion.
over $2
It's
billion.
$2 billion?
Yeah, I'm about to say, because he had been doing that telethon for, what, 20 years, if not more?
Oh, way longer.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
All of almost as long as I can remember.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
started back in the 60s and he ended it in 2010. They asked him to end it at that.
Well, yeah. Well,
Well, he was I mean, he was
made
old
some bad
then.
comments though his life, but
Yeah.
I mean, you get older.
Yeah, and but he will definitely be missed by the entertainment community. But like I say, out there in podcast land, if you get a chance, go out there and find some old Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin movies. It's just classic funny stuff, and you won't be mad about it. With all that said, though, we will be right back. Hey, you can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/Loft Party Podcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. And we are back. And before we get too deep, let's play a quick party game. So, what is your favorite Jerry Lee Lewis? Good gravy. See, this is why you don't talk on the breaks, because then stuff gets stuck in your head. So, what is your favorite Jerry Lewis movie or favorite Jerry Lewis story? And we will start with Chris O'Connor.
Okay. I had, I guess, two really quick ones. One was just something I didn't know that he did. He came up, was the first person to invent a way for a director who's starring in his own movie to actually see the playback on a given day. Because before that, as you know, everything's shot on film, obviously, back then. And so you would have no idea how your performance was or was not. And he actually rigged up a thing where you would film through the viewfinder.
Wow.
And then you could see it while you were performing.
Wait,
to know if your
he
performance
came
was
up with
good.
the idea of dailies?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Of really being able to do it efficiently and effectively if you're starring in your own movie.
That is crazy.
So that was kind of cool. And then being an enormous Dean Martin fan, I was a huge Dean Martin fan. It was actually cool to see them reunite for one of the last telecasts. So that was pretty cool, before Dean died.
Yeah.
So I like that.
All right. So I guess we'll just go around the table. So, Lane.
I honestly don't know who this dude is.
Young whippersnapper, you.
That is actually a reasonably awesome answer. I have no idea who this dude is. Adrian?
I'd say movie-wise, there's one I did watch as a whippersnapper myself. That was Bellboy. He was very funny in that one. Obviously, I'll be turning up on Netflix this weekend, as I'm sure they'll be releasing all of his old classics. So there'll be some I'll probably need to catch up on. But obviously, we all probably know him as the telethon guy during those long Labor Day weekends where he just took over every cable station in America. And you had no choice but to watch him stand there, ask you for money, and 1,000 people in the background answering the phone. So yeah, that's what I remember about him.
Listening to
What is the hardest thing in the world if you watch like any stretch of the telethon that he be talking, and then putting no phones was ringing, and like people just kind of back there trying not to look at the camera, looking down at the phone.
They kept raising money somehow.
Yeah.
No phone was ringing, but they bringing it up.
Maybe they quieted them during
It's called
his...
Maybe while he was talking, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
FTC.
I'm sure there had to be phones in the back. Like these were just like the celebrities who came out to answer the phone for the hour.
Didn't they know to like act like they were on the phone?
Just act like, yeah.
Guys are all busy.
Yeah.
Keep on calling.
Just keep on calling. Yeah.
I'm getting through pretty easy.
Must be one we can't see off camera.
Yeah. Big Dave?
Well, I think just who he was with Dean Martin and the team that they had. Jerry Lewis always played kind of a dim-witted character. The Dean Martin's more sophisticated character, and he was just this clumsy, dim-witted, falling all over the place, gangly, big smile, goofy face. You know, that was his shtick. You know, they really fell along the lines like Abbott and Costello and some of the great teams of that day, where they just play off each other. I think the tragedy of that was that him and Dino had a falling out.
Yeah.
And they didn't talk for damn near 20 years.
Oh, it was longer than that.
Was it longer than that, Chris? I knew it was a long time.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they have some reconciliation towards the end?
On the telethon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that vaguely. I don't remember
It
it
was a
fully.
little awkward. I do remember that. It was a little awkward.
Yeah. It
Well,
wasn't.
it's probably a lot awkward, but
There's
I
a
don't think
lesson.
anybody knew it was gonna
There's a
happen.
lesson learned there, and it goes back to when we had our father's podcast. That don't ever let it go till the very end.
Yeah.
Turn around and say, "Look, you were my partner. You were my
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. Hey, look, you're not
Don't
gonna agree forever.
Don't go to the grave with the FU."
Yeah, you're not gonna agree forever, but there's just no need to, turn out hating each other. Just
Right.
Well, it's not like either one of them had a bad career.
Yeah, exactly.
Although Jerry signed, when he did sign his deal, that was what caused the breakup. It was the wealthiest movie deal at that time. So, up in Hollywood history to then.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which causes a little bad blood.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The other thing
thought
was-
maybe he should have been the one with that.
well,
deal.
isn't it? It's kind of interesting how separate, like, because he was part of the Rat Pack too. So it was like,
Yeah,
that's
they
just
will
so.
kind of apply the Rat Pack.
Yeah. Well, it's
Jerry
funny.
Jerry
Lewis
Lewis was
Yeah.
persona non grata at the Rat Pack.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Dean Martin
yeah.
had that.
Jerry Lewis would have had his ass
Stop-
kicked
yeah,
before
yeah.
Sinatra would have had him buried
I
somewhere.
mean, that's just he's such an odd, like,
Well, Jerry
middle
really wasn't
character
part of
for
the Rat
that.
Pack that much.
What?
Nah, I mean, he
Dean
hung with
was.
Dean, but he
I'm
didn't.
talking about Dean Martin.
Yeah, Dean Martin, of course, was. Jerry really didn't hang with him.
No,
No, it was not allowed to hang with them.
No.
It was clear you were not welcome.
no. Sinatra did not like him like that. Like he was like,
Well, and after watching the documentary, I mean, I know we're getting off subject, but watching that documentary about Sinatra, I could see that. Because he was a very serious person.
yeah, not his.
And he had really horrible mood swings.
Like, yeah,
so.
like
Most genius dude.
yeah, like we're all here
Is that
drinking and
your
smoking and carousing.
Is that your problem?
You're not down with that? And I don't know if I want you hanging with me. And of course, now I'm Spino.
I really don't remember the names of the movies that, I watched when I was a kid with my mom and dad, but I probably remember him more. I would have to see them. You know how bad I am about names of things, but
From their old movies.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm horrible at names for songs. I can sing all the lyrics, but I couldn't tell you the name of the song. Anyway, I probably remember him more from the telethons.
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably probably his quintessential movie, probably The Nutty Professor, was the one that really sticks out. And then I don't think I actually saw the original. I had seen pieces of a ton of his movies, but never like a whole movie. But then I think after Eddie Murphy did The Nutty Professor, and then they said, "Oh, this is a remake of," and I was like, "Oh," and then I wanted to see what the original was like, and it was damn funny. I mean, it was a very different movie, but it was really damn funny. So hey, it is what it is. And I guess with that,
It is what it is.
we'll be right back. Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger and Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers. 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do. Time to rejoin the conversation. Okay, and we are back, and okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Party politics. So, during the break, Big Day brought up something. So before we get to the kind of list of topics that of things that happened this week, let's start with what you were saying there.
But there was a local issue here in Kansas City, kind of dealt with all these, the deal where we're going to tear down statues and pin them away and try to basically hide the history of what our country is, which I have a problem with. This was a old memorial that was put up by the women of the South to honor the Confederate dead. And it was put up long ago, about 55th and Wadpaco. It's a beautiful boulevard. It was defaced, and they were cleaning it up, and then the next thing you know, in the middle of the night, they come and took it out. Well, I Googled it up because I was curious about how that thing came about and what it was all about. Well, we had several Union and Confederate skirmishes right here in Kansas City. And during the Battle of Old Westport, there were many killed on both sides. And due to the way the troops had to move about and get around, they weren't able to pick up their dead. So the local farmers and people came up and picked them up and buried them in a mass grave that ended up at 55th and Ward Parkway. Also, another interesting fact, John Warnell had a house, which Warnell is a main street that goes down through Brookside here. They treated both Confederate and Union soldiers in the same hospital there. So they treated the wounded there, and then they buried them all together in a mass grave at 55th and Ward Parkway. So now they've removed that marker. I think the question is, okay, you had a problem because the women of the South put up that marker to honor their dead. But we have to realize that there is dead there that fought on both sides of the conflict of our Civil War. And where are we going as a country, in my opinion, that we need to erase our past when we should have our past to learn from? And that is where my issue is. We should always go forward as a country. I don't ever feel we should erase our past. Our past is ugly at times, and you need to remember that past and why it was ugly, because it's a history, and history teaches us things. We can't do anything about the past. We cannot do anything about what happened, but we do need to continue to teach it as that history that happened.
What part of history though? Because there's a part of history that's not being taught at all.
Not at all. So my question now is that,
Well, most of our
the
history
Romans
is
have
outside
slaves.
of
Is
them. We
there
had that
any
conversation.
Roman statues around? Are we supposed to remove them too? You know, this starts getting a little crazy after a while. And it starts to become something very serious that we have to deal with. And it's causing a lot of, you know, as my wife's Italian grandmother says, she would call it angina, which means heartache or stomach ache, you know, she get angina. It causes problems, and it causes divisiveness. And I question, where are we really going with this, and what is the point of it? This is very bothersome to me. I feel like my nation's slipping away in this stuff that it should not even be involved in. We're moving backward, we need to be moving forward. I'm very disturbed by it.
Anybody else want to jump in before?
Sure. I think it's a giant step forward to remove these ridiculous monuments. I think they're an insult to the country. Most of them were not put up in the aftermath of the Civil War. They were put up between 1890 and 1920.
Some of them were Jim Crow things.
The vast majority of them were just that.
They were Jim Crow things. I'm not saying they
Reconstruction's
weren't.
over, and so we're going to go back
Slapping
and remind everybody that white people are in charge, and use it as an intimidation tool on these things. And beyond that, even aside from just the racist nature of it, which I do find deplorable, and they should be removed for that alone, these are traitors to the country. These are treasonous people. We don't have statues to Benedict Arnold or Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. We don't have any of that bullshit, And to honor this entire group of people who said, "Fuck you, America, we're going to go to war with our one government over a single issue," which was slavery, which is indefensible.
Not just slavery, though. There were economic issues behind
No,
it.
there was one single issue why they actually broke apart. There have been economic problems the entire time. There was one issue why they seceded, and that is most definitely slavery.
agree with that.
And so it's indefensible to me that these statues were ever allowed to stay up as long as they were.
But do you think our history should be erased?
I think these monuments betrayed history in and of themselves. It's like watching Gone with the Wind. I love it as a movie, it's cinematic. But to portray the South and these people as heroes and yada yada and say, what was just a noble cause and all this bullshit. I'm like, no, you're a bunch of just cracker racists.
But frankly,
The
Chris,
statutes
I
here.
don't give a damn.
Nice.
Nice.
History was changed already.
Well played, sir.
I don't mind seeing that version of history removed because that's a fake version of history already.
So they interviewed, I think we talked about maybe we talked about it after the podcast. I don't remember. We talked about it last week, but they interviewed the mayor of
Richmond. It was Richmond.
Richmond. And they were talking about whether or not, and he's African American, and they were talking to him about, because he doesn't believe the statues should be removed. He believes the story around them and the script that's on them should be changed to reflect what actually happened and not make it seem like this glorious thing for these Confederate soldiers or people or whatever. So instead of removing it, it's rewriting it to be accurate and not one-sided. That's how, and they actually polled a lot of their
Local citizens.
yeah, which is
You know,
mostly African American, and they felt the same way. They didn't want it removed. But now, after what happened with the multiple faces of Trump over the last few days, they're rethinking whether or not they want to do that because of how he's behaved.
This was already in the works, and I think also you're counting on somebody going up and reading a plaque. I've heard this contextualized argument a million times, and you're telling
I'm
me
just
when
telling
you're driving
you-
by a park and there is a 20-foot statue of Robert E. Lee there that you all say, better pull over and read the plaque real fast. You know, no, from a distance, it
I
looks like you think
understand.
Robert E. Lee is a badass and not a racist traitor to the country.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that there's two sides to it. And,
But you're saying
and
there's a compromise.
I
That's not a compromise.
don't think that you should have a statue that towers over anybody. I think that if you're going to have something like that, it needs
But
to
they
be.
need to shrink the statues?
That means I got to recondition my statue. I was just getting that thing done. I just spent $1,000 getting it started.
I personally don't think that they should be up, but I'm one person. So
And on public land, on top of it, forget it.
okay, so I actually do want to hear from the remaining two people on the table that have not said anything yet, because I can see in both of your faces that you have something to say. But I do want to jump in real quick, and I want to say this because this is actually I was having this question with the anonymous. We were having this discussion with the anonymous female, and I posed this question. So
wait, you need the context because I made a comment about the Star, the Kansas City Star, having an article about removing the statues from the city.
yeah.
And I said, why does it, how did I word that? Why does it, I don't feel like that's being disrespectful because it was the type of statue it happened to be.
You know, and talking about the one that you're saying just got removed.
Daughters of the South.
Yeah. So my thought was, if this was Germany, and there was a statue saying to our fallen Third Reich soldiers, would anybody
It's actually illegal.
want that statue to stand?
Well, and when you put it that way, I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and
I totally get it
and
from that.
because, and I know what I'm about to say at this table and in podcast land will be a controversial statement, but that was our Third Reich, and why would we have statues honoring them? Now, honoring the battles, honoring fallen on both sides. There's a way to contextualize history without a huge statue to freaking Stonewall Jackson or Robert E. Lee because they were a hero. Because they weren't. They were traitors to our government that don't deserve a 30-foot loft of honor. Mm-hmm. Whereas here was fought the Battle of Antietam. Here was fought the Battle of Old Westport. Yes, all day, because that is a historical notion. Because all you're going to see is groups of guys fighting in the statue, and then so you don't know what that means until you read the plaque. But if you see this guy on his horse with his sword in the air, that means whether or not you change the plaque.
It makes him a hero. It turns him
That
into
turns him into a hero.
turns him into a hero.
Let me ask you a question though, Aaron, because we need to work in Adrian Lane on this. Would you, okay, let's say we remove the Daughters of the South memorial there. Don't you think we should go back with a memorial honoring the fallen soldiers that lay buried beneath it?
I mean, I couldn't answer that intellectually because I don't know much about this area and the history of it. And
Well,
what
just
was-
the fact that they're there.
I think there's going to have to be an area of patriotism that we have to understand first, because patriotism didn't come from just individuals. It came from a collective group of people fighting battles where we all had to earn something.
Right.
Well, we all had to earn our freedoms. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, women earning the right to
Fighting for
vote.
the country.
So there's so much behind the scenes of our patriotism, but we're putting our patriotism, it seems, behind symbolisms of things that really don't represent what we state in our Constitution. And that's where it's becoming very difficult for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah, I mean the state flag of Mississippi
That's what's up.
still has the Confederate flag in it.
Battle flag.
Yeah, like I'm like that's amazing and reprehensible to me that a state that is probably 70% African American,
Closer to 80.
that's still the state flag. That's insane.
The most illiterate and the poorest,
Yep.
and I think per capita has the most KKK
Yep.
registrations.
You said that. Because
I would
find
agree with all that.
wildly ironic is well, let's go back to a fact first. A historical fact. Less than 1% of the soldiers fighting in Confederate uniform were slaveholders.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward today. The same guys that are defending this Southern heritage 150 years ago would have been the poor white trash serving in Confederate uniform that did not own slaves, fighting for these landed slave owners to preserve an institution that was actually holding them back. Anyway, and then the other little bit of irony, a little historical fact I'll throw out there. Robert Edward Lee released his slaves when he took his appointment in the Confederate Army. You know who didn't? A guy named President Grant. And,
Right.
And he was challenged on that during his presidential campaign of 1872. Anyway, and he said, well, good help is just so hard to find. Anyway, so
That sounds like me.
no, God damn it. So what I'm getting at is such a convoluted, muddy situation that those statues were erected for the purpose of rallying these crackers again behind a cause that actually held them back, and so what I'm getting at is history. The history that the people that are defending those statues talking about the history, they're defending a false history, right?
Yes.
And the people that are trying to attack those statues don't even understand the real history to begin with. And so it's like, I don't even know what to make of the issue. I just want to, let's just find the truth first.
Like I said, yeah.
I think the question is too, we got to ask ourselves among ourselves, how far does that go?
Well,
They've been talking Washington and Jefferson and all this. You're starting to talk crazy talk now.
No,
I think the largest
that was
issue-
one guy in one press conference saying something asinine, which we will
One
get
guy
to.
in one press conference.
Yeah, and we will get down to
now
that.
let's get to the real root of the matter here. Fuck the statues. The real crux that the matter we should be discussing is President Trump's role in all of this. The president, his role is to be, I hate to use a George W. Bushism, but a uniter, not a divider. But
that's true. That is the job
and
of
so
the president.
What I'm getting at is these statues should be taken down, not because they're symbols of anything. They should be taken down because they've now become cultural firebrands of negativity in our society that is causing us to fall back. So you know what? I hate to say it. Take the fuckers down, and but at the same time, while you're doing that, let's use this publicity to actually tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell some history.
And that's why I say I'm okay with replacing the statues with something that actually reflects history. But what's
Now-
being displayed currently
Right.
is not history. That's iconography, and that's dangerous.
Right.
It's a contradiction to what we say we stand for. Everything we say America is. It contradicts one area to the next. I mean, we're saying that we're this patriotic, unified nation, but yet we got this statue that represents oppression and all these other things to make this one individual look like a hero, or whoever to look like a hero. And that's where it becomes a difficult pill to swallow, because there's a lot of people out there searching for the truth. They want to know the truth. I mean, a lot of people, I didn't find out until my early 20s truly what Thanksgiving was about. It was about stealing land from a group of people that taught you how to cultivate the land. But we celebrated every single year. And now the truth is starting to come out, and people are like, fuck this was a lie. We want the truth. And so now the truth is coming out, and now people want to embrace the truth more and get rid of the lies.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that you can't bring something back to where General Lee or whoever, in my small town, we have a statue of a guy named General Coffee. Same thing. He was a complete racist, bigot, and he owned slaves. Yeah. But in front of the courthouse is this 50-foot statue of him standing tall with his gun and his boots on a rock, looking over the city, like he represents everybody in the city. Yeah. That's not a good representation.
Yeah.
I agree, and I would just say this: you asked the Washington and Jefferson question. We have an Andrew Jackson statue, a couple blocks away from here, and they've all done reprehensible things. Everybody knows that. There's no mystery about that. I draw the line when you become a traitor to your country and you secede from the Union. There's no chance in living shit I'm going to honor you for that. Particularly when your decision to do it was based on one thing, and that happened to be slavery.
I won't argue that. I'm a Yankee Coon, so I'm a total conflict. But I am a Union man. I am part of. I do believe in what the Union stood for was right for America, and I think America benefited from what the Union won, and did. We became America after the Union won.
But how ironic that this is happening during this particular presidential
this particular presidential, which actually brings us to the next point, is Donald Trump and his many, which is actually funny. I really thought about kind of the symbolism of what we were going to be discussing today, and the fact that for everybody out there in podcast land, we're recording this on the day of the eclipse.
Great.
And that is actually the reason that this episode is titled "The Path to Totality." So the many phases of our president's response to Charlottesville. And so he after a few days, he comes out and he gives the famous many sides speech, which was an ad lib that wasn't even actually supposed to be in a speech. And then with the amount of repudiation that he got, came back and he gave a more dignified statement. And then, apparently, being very upset at the fact that he was forced to make the repudiation, he hijacked a press conference that should have been on infrastructure to say,
with two Jewish people behind him.
Two Jewish people and an Asian woman behind him, that there were fine people on both sides, and there are many sides to this issue, and the violence wasn't in the fault of any one side. So I chewed on this for a while, and I keep coming back to the same question. How is it possible that you make a moral equivalent between a rally for white supremacists? Because you can label it whatever you want to label it, but it was a rally for white supremacists and protesters against racism.
Can I answer that?
You can, but I'm going to tell you now, probably for the first time, I'm going to jump down your throat, because there's no moral equivalent that you can't justify the moral equivalency.
That's a man that understands his base.
Yeah,
his base was
I called
people in that.
But you did. We talked.
I called you last week.
Yeah, we talked.
And this is what I said.
Yes.
We should be happy that the damn white supremacists and the KKK and the Nazis and all these idiots couldn't even muster 100 people. That means we've made and this was a national thing, they were supposed to come together. That means we've made some progress, that there are fewer and fewer idiots in the world
I do believe that.
that believe this.
I do
Now,
believe that.
But where did these idiots come from? That was a war that
well,
was defeated.
they've been there all along. They're white crackers. They're white crackers.
Don't use that word, because, and I'll explain later. Go ahead.
But they're white crackers who are, got this crazy ideology because they're ignorant, and they've been taught by their parents this ignorance. They've been taught by their grandparents their ignorance. They've been taught by their great-grandparents this ignorance. This ignorance has come down the line forever and ever and ever.
I remember.
Hang on one second though. But let's go back to the Antifa, who basically claim to be communist. Now, here's one question I got, and this will disturb you. This will disturb you. The KKK, basically Democrats, covered themselves. What's the Antifa doing? They're wearing black and they're covering themselves. Why? That's, to me, is extremely disturbing. That they really, on the opposite end of the scale, are no different than what the damn KKK is, because they're out there producing violence against violence. Nothing happens. You know why this panel succeeds? Because we can always talk. And we always have discussions. These people don't talk anymore. They just go after each other. And that makes them ignorant. It makes them low. It makes them human scum. And there's nothing good about either one of them in that instance.
But how does the most powerful man in the world not take that as a moment? That was a complete opportunity for him to unify not only Democrats, Republicans, but the entire nation, the entire world. I was in Greece last year, and people were talking about.
You didn't feel like he hit both sides of the fence, though?
I think he missed.
I read all three statements.
When you have to in situations like that, there has to be a side. When there's right and there's wrong, and in that side,
Well, I thought they were both wrong, and that's where I would disagree with you.
There's probably some people acting out for the wrong reasons, and those are probably young kids that needed an opportunity to kind of just exert some energy.
They're a united movement, though, and that's the problem.
Some of them were, not all. I think some were just jumping and just joined a party. But you got the guy that the question was directed towards the president. Why didn't he take that as a moment to completely unify? If you go back to Kennedy and several other presidents, that's an opportunity to completely unify.
I don't totally disagree with that.
Even Reagan.
Could have maybe stated
I
himself.
think even
better.
Reagan would have took that softball.
But I have a real problem calling Trump a racist, because you look back over his history and he doesn't really prove that.
I don't know if it's about calling
His daughter converted to Judaism.
I don't know if it's about him calling him
You
a
can go back
racist.
20 years and hear him talking the same way he's talking now. Like, they have it on tape. They played it over the weekend.
Well, they have
I mean,
a lot of
his-
years where he didn't either.
I mean, the first big thing that I even remember.
Wait a minute. What does that even mean? I mean,
Well-
you say something 20 years ago and through 20 years.
What about Robert Byrd, who was a
Okay,
KKK
wait.
grand
We're
master?
not talking about
But
anybody
it's
but
the
Trump.
same type of stuff.
Okay,
You
you
can't-
asked a question about Trump, and I'm telling you, they've got him on tape over the last 20 years talking the same way he is now. That doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. We're talking about Trump, our president, who has been saying the same stuff for the last 2 decades. I mean, nobody else is our president.
And beyond that, he was federally sued for violations of the Fair Housing Act because he didn't want to let black people live in his building.
So what's
it's
the
not
problem?
just a matter of words. It's a matter of he put them into action, which I find ridiculous. And I've never seen a guy so out of touch where you are given just a birthday cake with ice cream on it and a candle, and all you have to do is blow it out. I mean, it's so easy. I mean, all you do is, you know what? Clan sucks. Then you call the mom immediately, express your deepest condolences. You go down to Charlottesville, you meet with the mayor and as many leaders from different parties as you can, and then you give a nice speech and try to unite everybody.
It's kind of like what happened in Mizzou.
That would have diffused it like that.
It's kind of like what happened in
And
Mizzou.
people would have looked at him as, maybe we were a little wrong. Maybe he actually can lead a little bit when the moment comes time.
I can't deny that.
And as a
That
result of
I'm
it-
not saying he made the best decision. I'm just not real convinced that calling Trump a racist, and then CNN today was.
Then don't be
watching the video,
racist.
They're calling him mentally ill and all this stuff. And it's kind of like, oh, come on, man.
I mean, honestly, personally, I think racism is a mental illness. I really believe.
You think he's a racist?
Yes, absolutely,
You
absolutely.
think he's a racist?
Well, one, going back to the '80s when he.
It's an illness.
Well, see, okay, so before you jump in, let me say this.
I need to get back out.
Before you jump in,
people
before you jump in, so in the '80s when he had the thing with the housing, he wouldn't let black people rent. The DOJ came to him with the same situation. Gave him a softball. All they said was, "Hey, we won't prosecute. Just stop. just stop doing what you're doing, and give black occupants the same opportunity to rent in your properties as everybody else." And he told DOJ at that point, kiss his ass. He wasn't doing it. That's why they actually had to go through with suing him. The whole birther thing through the Obama presidency. He never used the N-word, but questioning our first black president, whether or not he was even born in this country. You couldn't find 3 black people that won't agree. That was as dog whistle as you could get. That is a way of telling a certain amount of people, hey, I'm with you, that this guy, this black guy should not be where he is. Now, I'm pretty sure he knew nothing was going to come of it, but to press that issue for 6 years, it is a clear indication. Now, the funny thing is, there is no, other than black people who've been on The Apprentice, there really is no black person other than 1 or 2 1 or 2, which is odd to me, 1 or 2 pastors that have ever come out in defense of Donald Trump, because what the horrid thing is, most black people know when a situation is racially driven. We don't always want to call it what it is. Sometimes we just don't want to deal with it. We were having this conversation
after the
podcast last week. We were saying that there was a couple of guys that were up here at the Pendergast that asked. So after the podcast land, I have been honored by my friends, in particularly Big Dave Elliott. Put a sign up in a corner that I always sit in, and it says Mario's Corner. Anybody out there that doesn't know that I'm a black guy, guess what? I'm a black guy. So I came up here one night.
What?
Yes.
We just finally figured this out. It's a wonderful. I'm so glad you brought that up to us.
So one night or whatever, I came up and some guys were sitting in the corner that I normally sit in, and I never really asked anybody to move out of that corner. It's just kind of nice.
It's an inside joke.
Yeah, so you're right. It's kind of an inside joke, and so I kind of made a joke to the guy that was sitting there that drinks were on him because he's sitting in my corner. He goes, huh, what do you mean to me? I says, oh, I'm Mario, and I'm pointing at the sign. He goes, oh, you're Mario. I've been wondering who Mario was. We were actually talking about that the last time we were up here. You don't look like a Mario.
Oh!
Okay, so what you can't see right now is the face that Adrian is giving me in the what the fuck does that mean? I chose, because it was busy that day and I didn't want to cause issue for our bartender extraordinaire, Ben, at the moment. I chose not to have that fight at that time. But
it pissed you off.
Well, it wasn't even that it pissed me off, but right in there, in that moment, you don't look like a Mario, whether he knew it or not, and I'm fairly sure he knew it, but he thought he was making a joke, was a racist statement, because that means that
You should have been Italian.
you should have been Italian, maybe you should have been Hispanic, you should have been something, but not, 6'1", 260 black guy is not what I was picturing when I saw Mario. So when Donald Trump says, that this guy that is the president of our nation isn't born here, we don't hear him saying, hey, is he legitimate for this position? We hear what he's saying. And what he's saying is, hey, black guy, you don't belong here. Racism had become, for some time, very subtle. And as it became subtle, we got very adapted hearing the subtleties in the racist rhetoric. But what has happened since we've had a black president, the real racists in this country have decided that they can't be subtle anymore. Now, what I do agree with what you were saying in that I do think the percentage of the truly racist population is getting smaller. Because I do believe that any beast cries loudest just before it dies. But it's not gone. It's not.
No, it's not gone. I would never even begin to state that.
Yeah, but
it's not gone. I live down in Florida too.
Yeah, but
I see Crackerville all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when my mother and father are in the villages, and we drive from Jacksonville down to Ocala. You go through severe Crackerville now. Traveling through that way.
But I guess but it does bother me when I've heard the questions of kind of the moral equivalency between the two. You have Nazis and neo-Nazis and KKK and people who are inherently against what is American. Then you have the people who are fighting against that. It's funny.
Do you feel Antifa is American?
What I do feel is I remember hearing an interview with one of our great minds, Tupac Shakur, God rest his soul. I remember an interview with Pac, and Pac was trying to explain kind of the anger in the black community to a white reporter. And he says, so, think about it like this. You pass a restaurant, you look in the window, and they're having the greatest party you've ever seen in your life. There's food everywhere, people are laughing, shit, there's so much food, they're just throwing food, it's ridiculous, and you're outside and you're hungry. So you decide, I'm gonna knock. I'm gonna see if they'll let me in because I'm hungry. And you start with the, please sir, please ma'am, will you let me in, I'm hungry. And they go, hey, get the fuck away from here. You come back the next day, party's still going on. You decide you're gonna do a little song and dance. You're gonna try to make it cute. And you do the, please, I'm hungry, will you let me in? And they go, man, get the fuck out of here. The next day you come back, party's still going on, and now you're like, now you're a little more angry. You're like, okay, look, like you're being blatantly disrespectful. I'm hungry, and you're blatantly shutting the door. So now I'm asking a little more aggressive, but not really aggressive. I'm like, please, I'm hungry. Could you let me in? And they're like, man, get the fuck out of here. He says, so compound that over decades. Now people aren't asking anymore. They're mad. the party's been going on for decades, and people have been outside that window looking at the party, and now they're not saying, please, I'm hungry, will you let me in? Now they're like, hey, motherfucker, I'm hungry, let me in. Like, I'm kicking in the door and I'm shooting people because they're tired of getting denied something that basic. You know, and it's not because the party was so exclusive that nobody else could come in. It was because you decided that that particular person or these particular people weren't good enough to be in your party. You know, and and unfortunately, that's where we are in our kind of our racial narrative. And I'm not saying that violence is good. You know, I haven't, and I won't ever say that. But I will say, at a certain point, asking nicely hasn't gotten us anywhere.
But Antifa is mostly white.
But see, what's starting to happen is when what Adrian was talking about is getting to the truth. Now you're starting to get, you know, very well-meaning white people that are starting to see, why aren't we letting that guy in?
I'm sorry, I cannot see Antifa as well-meaning in any kind of way.
Yeah.
I just can't. I mean, they are violent.
Well, and what I'm saying is,
And they're busting to be violent.
that may be true, but to tell you the truth, and this is just me personally, and this may be a very controversial statement, but depending on, okay, think about it like this. You know, Lane, you're a soldier.
Was.
Still am.
You go to another country to fight. They have a perspective of what you're doing over there.
Right.
To them, you're invading their country.
Right.
You're being violent. You're shooting and killing people. You're blowing up stuff that you have no right blowing up.
Sure.
But the reason that you went over there is because, you know, they're inherently violent and inherently violent to their own people, and 100 other things on the checklist of the reason that you went in there to try to stabilize this situation. And honestly, this is the way I see this conflict. And I'm not just talking about Antifa, I'm talking about, you have the people on the side of racist activity versus the people that are on the side of, you know, we don't want any more racism in this country. And somebody's fighting because they want to continue being racist, and they really want the country to go back to the way it was in the 50s. They want this country to be a Mad Men series. And you have the people who are saying, no, it is 2017, and it is time to act as if we're in 2017.
And which I will agree on 100%.
Yeah. I was watching this video over the weekend, and it was by this Asian reporter, and he actually invited a white nationalist to dinner. So they are sitting down and they're having this conversation, and he says, you know, why did you start this white nationalist program? It's a non-profit organization for white nationalists. So people are actually donating to this organization. And this is a guy probably in his 60s, white guy, real conservative, you can tell. He said, we voted for Trump because he conformed around our ideals. And they was like, well, what part of us diversifying is an issue? And he says, when you we saw through the last election that we were becoming the minority over time. And when you're the minority, you have no power. And I want to hold on to my history, or what he perceives as his history. And I want to make sure that what we sustain continues to go forward forever. And why would I want to give it to you? Why would I want to give it to black people? Why would I want to give it to another ethnic group? So it's fear. It's their own fear that, honestly, in my personal opinion, they created. It's okay to have Hispanics cross the border to work on your farms and pick your vegetables.
To do jobs that
Yeah.
nobody wants to do.
And pay them under the table when they're illegal. But once they start having kids here, their kids become American citizens, and they acquire the intellect to vote and to speak out, then whoa, that's not what we brought you here for. So it's now this whole evolution, so to speak, of all these different things that have happened. They outsmarted themselves, so to speak, in so many ways. And now this whole evolution has now happened, and now it's instilled their own fear. Because Obama became president, I swear 2008 was probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful grand campaign I have ever seen a president run in my lifetime. I've never seen anything more unifying. Granted, it didn't quite work out the way he had planned, but it was the most unifying thing. Once you saw it, the night he was elected president in Chicago, what you saw, you didn't see any protests. You saw a bunch of unified people saying, wow, we've done this for him because we see him as a leader. And now, complete contradiction of what there was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever it was, to where we are now. And the part is, what's there to fear? There's still a staggering difference in statistics and economics when it comes from Caucasians to any other ethnic group in the United States. So what is the big fear? There's no way to eradicate one race to the other. Granted, we're all becoming very mixed in culture and all those things with interracial relationships and all that kind of stuff, because the generations coming up are becoming extremely colorblind, which is good. This is what we said we wanted. But now when we get what we want, we're having this fear because of the top tier, feeling like they won't have what they no longer have anymore. And that's where it's so confusing for people like myself that come from, hick towns where, everybody that has a business is not a minority by any means. And when you start to grow up and you start to see 80% of the NBA is black, 75% of the NFL is black, but no ownership, no true leadership at the top echelon of this company. The people that are actually writing checks are not. That's weird. And you say we're in this society where we engulf all these different cultures. Do we really? Or have we masked it in a way to where we've actually fooled ourselves to thinking that we have that? So that's my rant. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, sorry for
You're
that. No sorry.
So, I don't know if we have solved any of the world's ills, but I do want to get to a couple other points.
Great conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Some other things that have happened this week. I think one thing that people were wanting to happen probably from the beginning of this administration. Steve Bannon out of there.
Yay.
Left the building.
Whew.
Now he's snitching.
Yeah, so which is actually the next point. He's not only out of there, but he's been threatening at least to super snitch on the administration if he doesn't kind of get his way.
What do you think's in there? What do you think he can say that hasn't already been leaked in some form?
Oh, I'm sure that there are things.
Maybe campaign things, but you have to wonder about.
Honestly, I truly believe up till maybe a month ago, he was probably well in the loop. And then, like we watched enough shows where all of a sudden the chief of staff or
doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're just out of the loop, and they're like, wait, what's going? What? Who's? Like, how come I didn't know about this meeting? Because you weren't invited, sir. and I think that's probably what started happening.
Are they speculating on the news yesterday or today that it was when Kelly became chief of staff?
Well, they had an article at
Kelly, is that his
CNN
name?
had a story today where
The
General
chief
Kelly.
yeah.
No, they had an article today where Kelly had actually offered him a very amicable, nice way to leave, and everything was going okay up until apparently Jared Kushner did something that pissed him off, and then he also gave the article to the magazine, and everything just went crazy from there. So that's what convinced Trump to get rid of him. I just wonder what he really does know and doesn't know. Because I said last week I didn't think they'd ever fire him for that reason alone. I just thought they'd put him in a corner.
It's amazing how much different
a
a week can be.
Yeah. Yeah. They must have some sort of.
And this news cycle
place.
is not uncommon anymore. It's just, it's crazy.
Well, we literally said on the podcast last week that, well, we didn't. Chris said he didn't think he'd ever be fired. 5 days later, he's gone.
This is why I think
I'm not
they have some
surprised
sort
by
of
it.
agreement. I mean, I think they have
I
something.
think Kelly is taking control.
We shall see.
What kind of agreement could they have if he's threatening to?
Listen, you can have an agreement that says if you say anything that we did was criminal or assist these investigations or do any of that stuff,
Yeah.
then I'm going to make sure to throw you back under the bus for that because we got dirt on you too now, and your ass will be in a sling. So you can make all the right-wing crazy noise you want on your little website, but don't say anything too stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, definitely. Another thing I wanted to talk about was, does anybody know how many of the councils disbanded? I know.
There were two.
I know
I think both of them did.
Yeah, I know
He only had two. He had the manufacturing and then security, not security, IT maybe? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I
Anyway.
think it was IT.
Well, IT was in manufacturing somehow, but I can't remember.
Yeah, but I do know there was. I know there was two. I just wasn't sure if there were more. But it was funny listening to Trump try to spin that he disbanded the council when the council voted to disband itself because nobody wanted to stand next to him anymore.
Well, any president's going to try to deflect that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
If it had been Obama,
Well,
it'd be the same thing. They're going to deflect that. You know, one thing Obama didn't have is that he didn't have defections.
Yeah, I mean,
These people were all very loyal to him.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, there were some people he should have got rid of and he didn't.
yeah, there were people that changed positions, or left the administration all through his administration. But it doesn't seem as if anybody left.
What scandal did he
Green
have in the 8 years he was president?
Well, it was a fellow named Green. I want to say Jeff Green. I don't think that was right. He had some rather radical opinions on some things, and he's the only one that got forced out, to my knowledge.
Yeah, under the
I
Obama
may
administration.
be wrong in the last name.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up on CNN. He's correspondent. He's a contributor
Right.
to CNN now. But he was the only one that I know of that said something really radical, and they said bye-bye.
Yeah, which, to me, getting back to, Adrian talking about how that campaign was run. I mean, you don't get that many moving parts, and then when it's over, nobody basically have anything bad to say.
Valerie Jarrett was there the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
How unusual is that?
Yeah, very unusual. Some of these positions, they're going to turn over
I don't agree with her all
once
that,
in a
but-
term, and then some of these people were there for the entirety of both terms. I mean, to me says a lot about the character of the man himself. I did. And I would actually suspect you probably paid closer attention to the actual statement, but I do remember the Joint Chiefs of Staff made a statement about
Racism.
about what was intolerable in America and in any presidential administration.
Well,
And,
they said the military is the most diverse.
Probably the most
Organization, I guess?
democratic institution in America.
They said that there were more, that really reflects what the country should be, what it is.
Well,
Because
the culture inside the uniform is that it's very binary. Can you or can you not accomplish the objective or the mission that's assigned to your role.
Well,
And
and
if
they
you
were,
can't, you're dismissed with extreme prejudice.
yeah, I mean, they were just really talking about just the diversity of, race and. Now, I don't know about how when you get higher up, I don't know about that, but
race and
just
gender
in general,
orientation,
it's probably the most diverse organization in the country.
Lane, didn't a black female take over West Point as far as commander goes?
Yeah, the commandant.
Yeah. Commandant. I mean, that, in my opinion, that's what it's all about.
But yeah, the Joint Chiefs of Staff made that whole statement about racism is intolerable and blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah, and even to the point of no matter who says it nor what office they hold, and it was a very bold and definitive statement. I actually had to tip my hat to, and we've had the conversation a lot, the Namas female and I, about all of the generals that he's kind of been surrounding himself with, and how they're kind of dealing with all of this. And I was thinking that I don't know if any of them will resign only because they're good soldiers.
Right.
And
They feel they could influence him better from where they are.
Yeah. And I don't even know. Well, that's very possible. But what I do know of people who are career military is, you've decided that you're going to be a good soldier. You're going to fall in line and you're going to follow orders, and with minor amounts of questioning, if at all possible. And that's kind of what I've been thinking is happening with the generals that he's got under him, because like you can tell with General Kelly at the Tuesday press conference at Trump Tower, like you can tell that he was disturbed with what was happening, but he wasn't going to say anything in that moment, because he is a good soldier, and this is the commander-in-chief for all intents and purposes, and until he's not.
Well, he had subtleties in his speech that kind of let you know that he was disturbed about it, because there were certain things how he said things.
Kelly, yeah.
There were subtleties in how he stated things, and this is how these people do these things. They will, in subtleties, state how they really feel.
Yeah, well, and
I saw some of that.
With the joint chief statement, I definitely
that
was very strong. But all of the other kind of generals as appointees that have made statements, I think they try to make as subtle a distinction between them.
They have to play the politics of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll be right back. Hey, you having a good time? Let me introduce you to a couple of my media brothers. First, www.americathemixtape.com, a cipher on American politics, society, and culture. And where'd I get that mixtape? Of course, www.cornerbodega.us, purveyors of urban culture. Come on, let's get back to the party. And we are back, and before we get out of here, let's talk about today's sugar honey iced tea. For those that don't know, these are things that I or a member of the group have found that are really cool, aka the shit. And today's sugar honey iced tea is the Total Eclipse. Here in Kansas City, we were actually pretty close to the path of totality. We were actually able to see like 99%. So we saw what they call the diamond ring just before Total Eclipse. If you were just a little ways from here, you should have been able to see 100% totality. Although I think they got bad clouds and rain. I'm so sorry for you guys because you camped out for that. But I saw one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, and so that got me to thinking: when will we see an event like this again? So the last time we saw an event like this was 38 years ago. And the next time we'll see anything like this in North America is going to be 2024, and that's going to be closer to the East Coast. The path kind of
Basically from Rhode Island down to Texas.
Yeah, so it won't hit. It'll hit like the bottom corner of Missouri. It won't hit Kansas City anywhere
that's
near.
definitely where we want to be. We're going to go down to the boot hill.
There you go. There you go.
We could fly our Learjet to see the total eclipse of the sun in Nova Scotia.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a Carly Simon.
Yeah, Learjet, Nova Scotia. I'm down.
Written about Warren Beatty about that.
And then the next time it's going to kind of stretch the expanse of the country is going to be another 28 years. It's going to be 2045.
I don't plan on being here then.
That's going to go from the top of California to almost the bottom of Florida. That path, and it will also miss Kansas City again.
Missing Missouri altogether on that one.
Yeah, but I would not be mad to go to California or Florida and watch it. Watch it there. That is, of course, if I am alive and give a damn in 28 years to see it
In
again.
August,
I would, assuming weather is in 28 years what it is now.
Yes.
It would definitely be California.
Yeah, exactly.
I do not want to go down to Florida during hurricane season.
I've been on song.
So,
Here,
did-
2045, if we are still alive.
Did everybody see? Did everybody here see it today? Mm-hmm. So where did you guys go?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I swim with the Master Swim program.
Mm-hmm.
I hung out in the pool, put on the glasses. They were
Okay.
cardboard, so they started falling apart because they were all wet. And we hung out in the pool with my swim group, and I've been swimming with that group for 10 years, and it was just a kind of a cool, different thing to be hanging out in the pool with all the guys I swam with, and gals I've swam with all these years, and watch the eclipse from the pool. And we're right there on the Sprint campus, and one of the things that a couple of guys already brought up, and gals already brought up, is that all the lights came on,
Yeah.
including the lights in the pool.
Oh, that's
So as we were swimming our last few laps, the lights in the pool came on,
That's pretty
so it kind of reminded me of being at the Best Western when I was a kid.
That's pretty cool.
You go swim in the pool late in the day, you're traveling with your parents, and there's no air conditioning in the car, and all the windows are down. This is back in the 60s, and you check into some motel in the middle of godforsaken nowhere, but you go swim in that pool at night and the lights are on.
Awesome.
What about you, Adrian?
I was on my balcony. I caught it right at the last, I guess, the last 25%, and then this huge cloud came out of nowhere. This huge rain cloud came, and that ruined it. So that was it.
Lane?
I was on the job site screaming at guys to get back to work.
Okay. All right. Nothing to see here. You wasted my money. Chris?
I was on the rooftop of a bar in an area of town called Brookside.
Okay.
So,
Everybody said, now that sounds like the place to be. Having a drink, seeing one of the wonders that you don't get to see that often in your lifetime. So with that, we've had quite a lively discussion on today's Loft Party podcast, and I'm glad you guys all tuned in. So I do suppose I'm going to end this in the way I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is the good times with good people.